Morning to everybody. Welcome to Timeout. My name is Jack Windt. This morning I'm going up these rocks, so I'm just careful not to look too far up, to looking down a little bit so that I don't fall over. That will be really funny. So thank you for your comments last week. It was great to hear from you. Let me know this morning how you're doing, what you're thinking about the topic that I'm going to share with you. It's always great to hear your comments because that's really why I do Timeout. Now this weekend that's passed, I was in church, strangely, and my wife was sharing, Shani, and she was sharing on ordinary people doing extraordinary things for God. And when she got to the end of her message out of Job 38 verse 1, she said something that caught my attention. She said, God spoke to Job out of the storm. I thought that's a great topic to share with you on Timeout. And so I want to say this morning, does God speak to us out of a storm? Does God speak to you out of a storm? Have you ever been in a storm and you've wondered, where is God? And what would he be saying if he did speak to me? So I'm just going to clip in here. The sun's quite tricky this morning. I'm trying to avoid all the shadows. So just bear with me this morning. I have no assistant except my camera stand. So, well, again, this morning, yes, when God speaks to us out of a storm, what would he be saying to us and how do we respond? And I thought about a story in the Bible where the disciples, professional fishermen, were in their boat and Jesus was there and they were teaching. And when they finished by the Sea of Galilee, the Bible says, Jesus said, let's go and to the other side. And while they were traveling and he was sleeping, the Bible says, on a cushion on the floor of the boat, and the disciples were in charge, a ferocious storm came out of nowhere, and the waves came and the wind picked up, and the sea gathered momentum until it wanted to swamp the boats, to such an extent that those professional fishermen cried out to God that they thought they were going to drown. And it sounds far-fetched because the Sea of Galilee is like a lake. And how could it go from there to, a place where you think you're going to drown? Well, I've got a true story. I went to Israel once. I was on a tour leader's tour guide. That was when they were taking tour leaders to try and encourage them to take tours to Israel. And they gave you a free tour for a week. And I was privileged to be invited. And we got to the Sea of Galilee. I'd been to Israel once before. And when we got to the Sea of Galilee, quite a few younger people those days, and I was younger anyway. And so we went into this boat, this boat to take us on all the sights on the sea. And in the middle of that boat, I was looking at the mountains that face the Sea of Galilee, or the backside of it, and I saw this wind coming right down. It was like a cold front, and it hit the sea. And I thought, that's a strange phenomena. And within minutes, I want to tell you, within minutes, that boat was transformed. The sea was transformed. The wind picked up. And, us guys were in the boat were quite brave. We thought we were part of the Titanic crew. And we were standing in the front there making jokes until the guy that was steering the boat, that had done it many times before, he said, guys, can we all just crouch in the middle of the boat? This is quite a vicious storm. And then I got worried. Well, it took us an hour to get out of that storm. And I never forget it. We called that our Sea of Galilee experience because it was real. And then I realized the story in the Bible was true, and how that happened to even professional fishermen, how they felt intimidated in the midst of that storm. Now, when you're in a storm and the wind picks up, it wants to blow you away. The lightning strikes and it feels like it wants to strike you. And, the thunder is overbearing and it's intimidating you. And on top of that, you have rain coming down. Now, normally rain is a great blessing to us. But, in a storm, it just adds to all the drama. It's like it's not raining, it's pouring now in your life. And when you're in a storm, that's how you feel. That's how the disciples felt. All of a sudden, they felt overwhelmed by the storm that normally they would be able to cope with. The storms of life come sometimes out of the blue. when we're not expecting it, and we find ourselves overwhelmed by the lightning, by the wind, by the thunder, and even by the rain. And people say, what's the devil into? The devil's into advertising. Very much so. The moment I get into trouble, he goes and takes out adverts to intimidate me. He gets billboards around me that says, you're never going to make it. Jack, this is the end. You're going to sink. Your boat's going to sink. You're on the way to nowhere. And all these billboards pop up to create fear and anxiety in my life and in your life, because the enemy is into advertising, and he uses us to intimidate us and to create fear, and all over this place. Now, so what would God be saying to me and to you in the midst of a storm where there's lightning, thunder, rain, and maybe even hail and wind wanting to blow us away? What would God be saying to us in the midst of that storm? And so I thought about that for a moment, and these are the things I want to share with you this morning. The first thing, that when you find yourself in that storm of life and all the enemy's billboards are around you that are declaring defeat for you, you need to realize one thing, and I need to realize it, that who is in that boat, or who is in that storm, who is in that vessel of my life that God's put me in, who is in that vessel with me. And when we realize, you see, it's easy to focus on who's against us. When the enemy wants to intimidate me, all he needs is two people, because then he's a majority. If I'm on my own and he's got two people, that's a majority, and now I'm outnumbered, and so I'm intimidated. But when I realize that God's with me, because God is right there in my vessel, he was right there in the vessel with those disciples, then I say to myself, I'm a majority. God and I are a majority. Even if there was 1,000 people against me, I'd still be a majority. Even if there was 10,000, because God and us make up a majority. It's not who's against us. It's who's for us and who's with us. And God is in our ship. He's in our vessel. Because the vessels and the ships and the boats speak about our purpose in life, where we're en route to. And it's God who gives us purpose. So he's right there in our purpose, just like he was with the disciples. But they didn't always realize it, because you know why? Jesus was sleeping, the Bible says, at the time. Now, I don't know about you, but sometimes when you're in a storm, you say, God, are you paying attention here? All the lightning, the thunder, the rain, the billboard saying defeat is coming, it's imminent. And you say, God, are you paying attention? Are you sleeping here, Lord? Because I need you to pay attention. I need you to wake up and see I'm in trouble. But you see, Jesus knew exactly where they were when he went to sleep, and he wasn't concerned. So I say, if we realize that God is with us, we are a majority. The second thing that God says to us out of that storm would be to say, listen, when Jesus said to those disciples, I want you to go to the other side, he wasn't just giving them, something to perhaps. He was saying, that's a mandate. When God tells you to do something, you've got a mandate to go there. That's a destiny, he says, I've determined for you. And that destiny gives you a mandate, because you got a word from God. And so when we're in that situation, what God is saying to us in that storm is, you have a mandate. When you're in that ship and all the advertising is coming against you and the intimidation, remember, you have a mandate to be there. Not only is God with you, but you have a mandate to go where you need to go. And then lastly, what God says to us out of a storm often, and is what he said to the disciples even, we know that Jesus got up, rebuked the storm, spoke to the storm, and then spoke to the disciples. We need to realize that sometimes we have to let go of the rudder of our vehicle, our vessel, our ship, our boat, and we need to cry out to God to come and steer that vessel through that storm. Because you see, God doesn't want to steer my vessel all the time. That's my purpose. But he's in that vessel with me. But there are times where we can call upon God to say, don't you want to steer this vessel? Because you see, God knows where all the potholes are. God knows where all the rocks are. He knows where the sandbanks are in that storm. And he can steer us out. And it's amazing that You know, sometimes we don't want to, and he may even say to me, Jack, go and lie down on the cushion and sleep in the boat. And I'll say anxiously, no, Lord, I can't do this. But remember, when Jesus went to sleep on that boat, he was saying to the disciples, I trust you, you in charge. And now you need to trust me and let me be in charge, and you go and sleep in the boat and see that I am in this situation with you. So, you say, Jack, does God speak to us out of a storm? Absolutely. And he reminds us that he'll never leave us or forsake us. He is with us as a majority. We have a mandate to go where we're going. And sometimes we even have the right to ask him to steer the ship. My name is Jack Windt. You've been watching Timeout. I'll catch you next week.
You unravel me